Hello and welcome to Brain Says Strange Things. My name is Patrick, and this is my brother and co host Jordan. This is the podcast where we talk about horror movies, and this episode we're going to be talking about one of the all time great horror movie directors, the godfather of gore, Lucio Fulci, the great Italian director.
One of the godfathers of gore.
Right.
There's another one.
Herschel Gordon Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about the Italian godfather of gore, Lucio Fulci, tonight. And we're specifically going to be looking at three of his films. Zombie, also known as Zombie 2 and a bunch of other names.
They all have multiple titles.
Right. So we'll take a look at Zombie, The Beyond, and a very interesting film from later in Fulci's career called Cat in the Brain. So I think we'll kick things off with our discussion of Zombie, probably his best known film. Mm-hmm. So Zombie, or Zombie 2 as it was released in Italy, is sort of an unofficial sequel to George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. And it essentially concerns a group of Americans who travel to an island somewhere.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, in search of this young woman's father who has disappeared.
Kind of like a Caribbean
yeah,
something
vaguely
like
Caribbean island. So this American reporter accompanies this young woman whose father had been doing research on the island. He has disappeared, and then when they arrive at this island, they meet up with a couple of other Americans and find out that the scientists there are experimenting to figure out why the dead seem to be coming back to life as zombies. And just why that's happening and how that's happening is never really explained in this movie.
As with Romero's.
Right, there's no real explanation for the origin of
It works really well in that way, I think.
Yeah, but nevertheless, the zombies are coming back, and they're attacking our group, and it's just a lot of good, gory fun. Mm-hmm. So, what did you think of Zombie?
Well, I'm the one that recommended it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked it on some levels. It's a dubbed movie. You can watch it with subtitles if you want. I guess I prefer dubbed. With kind of these campier horror movies, that doesn't really make a difference to me whether it's dubbed or subtitled. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, well, I think it's any version of this movie that you watch is going to be a dubbed movie. Because all the dialogue is kind of put in after
all
the fact.
Speaking different languages.
The actors are speaking different languages, and they dub Italian for the Italian release. They dub, English for the English release. So it's really, you're always going to be watching a dubbed film. So I actually have watched both recently. I watched the Italian language version, and I watched the English language version.
You just watched it again.
Yeah, I just
So recently, you remember it much better than I do.
Yeah, I just recently watched it with the English language track. And I actually probably prefer that. I think that's just as good.
That's the way I would watch it.
Yeah, it's sort of weird to see, because they have this prologue sequence that takes place in New York.
Oh, yeah, you kind of glossed over that really great introduction.
I did, yeah.
That's really cool, where you just see a boat floating into the harbor in New York. Mm-hmm. There's nobody on board. And then you find out that there's a zombie below. I don't really know how to sell that, but it looks cool.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It starts out with this prologue.
Very eerie.
Yeah, this eerie prologue, which I think was sort of tacked onto the film. I don't think it appears in all versions of the film, to sort of try and connect it a little bit more overtly to Dawn of the Dead. So that there's some connection to the United States.
Or to like an American audience in general.
Right, yeah. So this seemingly abandoned boat kind of drifts into New York, and
the Coast Guard's like calling them, no one's responding.
Yeah, and they discover this big fat zombie on board, which starts chomping on police officers, and that's kind of what sets them off on this journey to this
fat zombie would be the most dangerous kind, because they're probably the ones that have caught the most victims. But then I guess they're all slow. Fat ones would be, okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. Trying to seriously analyze zombies.
Yeah, I don't know. He looked pretty cool,
though. That's a part of the movie that I really like.
Well, that's probably the big selling point for it.
Not even just how the zombies look, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. Pretty much just the visuals in general. Which is also, I remember, kind of my same argument I have for a lot of the Hammer movies is I just like the visual aspect of them. I always thought with Zombie you could take like a still from any of the scenes and you could make like an awesome poster out of it.
Or a T-shirt.
Or a T-shirt or whatever. You could have a Zombie a Day calendar if you wanted, with the scene from each one. Now you start flipping all those together and you're trying to figure out what's going on in the plot, then the movie starts to kind of fall apart. But as long as you're enjoying it on that level, it works fine.
Right. So you don't think that it's not an overall great film, but it has some cool like visuals?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I would say for it too. I think the zombies look terrific. Maybe some of the best looking zombies that have ever been on screen in this movie, I think.
Yeah, but also this one also has another thing kind of going for it, is where it has interesting concepts that aren't in Night of the Living Dead or whatever.
Such as?
Well, there's a zombie that's fighting a shark
right.
underwater.
Yeah, there's two really...
It's an actual shark.
Right,
they actually filmed a real shark.
There's two really noteworthy scenes in here, and one is the famous zombie versus shark scene.
Yep. I know the other one that you're going to say, but there's also the introduction that we talked about too.
Okay.
Like that's a unique way to introduce a zombie movie. I think it looks cool.
All right.
And then there's of course the famous. There's always a scene where somebody's getting ocular injury.
Yeah, there's this really disturbing scene in this film where this woman has her eye impaled on a splinter of wood, and the camera just does not cut away. It's filmed in up close, excruciating detail, and
that's what everybody points to. It's like the shower scene.
It is
in
disturbing.
Psycho.
It is disturbing though, and as many times as I see it, I still cringe. And the injury to the eye motif would become sort of a staple of Fulci's films going forward. In fact, it was featured in all three of the movies we watched tonight. But I don't know that it was ever done as effectively as it was in Zombie.
Well, I think a lot of the deaths are equally creepy. I don't know why people... I guess I do know why they point to the eye one, but there are other deaths that are equally... where they just hang on that moment and you watch it.
Right on.
That's stuff that particularly even makes me... I still watch it, but it makes me shiver a little bit, or creeps me out. There's scenes where they're like ripping someone's neck out, and it's real makeup. And you can kind of tell it's fake, but at the same time, there's just like a fountain of blood, and the skin is like being ripped off, and they hang on it. They watch that happen in real time, and it's pretty disturbing. More so than any other horror movie, I think, that I can even point to.
Yeah. In terms of gore, there's not too many who do it better than Fulci, I don't think.
He's better than... I don't know. You haven't seen any Herschel Gordon.
No. Well, see, I'm not a big gore guy necessarily, but I can appreciate it when it's well done, and it's really well done here.
Yeah.
And Fulci, you're right, he really lingers on it. I mean, there's no suggestion here. There's no cutting away. There's no... less is more approach. Every bite that the zombies make on a person is a flesh-rending tear, and we see the geyser of blood coming out of the artery. I mean, every single time. It's really in your face and intense. And I appreciate that about it.
The Herschel Gordon Lewis movies do pretty much the same thing, same technique, where they hang on the moment they watch it in close up. An extreme close-up in some cases, but those, I don't know, you can just pretty much tell, you can tell they're all fake, but those movies are way campier. Mm-hmm. So you're never really quite in the moment with the director, I guess, is how I could say it, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. You're removed from it, so it's not quite as creepy as... Fulci's movies creep me out more than Herschel Gordon Lewis. Yeah. Those are more like so bad it's good movies.
Yeah.
And I say that even I'm kind of like you. I don't necessarily like specifically gory movies, but I'll watch them. I'm fine with them, but it's not particularly... I feel it's almost kind of like a cheap shot. Or a cheap
it can be, yeah.
Point across, especially in these ones.
Yeah, well, Zombie was definitely the best of the three we watched for me tonight.
Yeah,
and
they got kind of progressively worse.
Yeah. And I think what I like so much about Zombie is that it does really just do one thing. Gore and cool looking zombies, but it does it really well. This is kind of like what Night of the Living Dead would have been like, it absent any kind of like social or political commentaries or metaphors. Fulci is not interested in that at all. It's just really gross, disgusting zombies and gory kills.
Or if he does,
and that's it. And it was a big hit on the Grindhouse kind of drive-in circuit in the U.S. And it really kind of gave him international fame. And it's just great fun.
If he does have a point, and this kind of goes across all three of the movies that we're talking about, is if the point is so hammered home and it's so overt that it's not, I don't know, it's not really particularly interesting. Mm-hmm. You're not watching it to get that out of it.
No. Well, I don't even think there was an attempt at any kind of a larger message.
Zombie probably not.
Zombie.
The other ones do sort of
a
little bit, but it's just always mismanaged, I think. He's not a writer at all.
No.
Even though he's credited as a writer on, or at least a co-writer on almost all his movies, or a lot of them I know. But I'm pretty confident that he's not necessarily the best writer.
Yeah, well, in terms
I don't even know if he's probably the best director. I think he's a really good, I'll give this idea, is that maybe he's a really great cinematographer. But he's not a very good director. So.
Interesting. Yeah, I think he just hit on something in Zombie that people really responded to, and he just kind of embraced that for most of the rest of his career.
Yeah, you know,
I don't know that he's a great visionary in the way that some of the other Italian directors like Dario Argento, clearly has this really wild creative sensibility. I don't really see that coming from Lucio Fulci, but he just made some really great gory movies that people love and that really endure to this day. I mean, I don't know. I would probably rather rewatch Zombie than Night of the Living Dead.
I think
just because it looks cool, and you don't really have to pay that much attention to the story. There's not much of a story there. The characters really aren't particularly interesting. There's nothing to really hold on to in terms of that. Mm-hmm. But you can just kind of put it in and watch some really cool zombies, and a zombie fights a shark. And I like the music in this movie.
I don't necessarily remember.
Yeah, I think there's this kind of creepy score they use when the zombies are attacking, especially in a horde at the end of the movie, that I find really memorable and effective. So I like the look of it. I like
except the guy with the hair at the
colors.
End.
Oh yeah.
Well, talk about the look of it.
The lead guy, the British actor in this movie, has one of the absolute worst comb overs you've ever seen.
It's not a comb over, it's like a comb forward or a comb out or something. And when really he gets all disheveled in the end when he's running away from the zombies, that hair is everywhere, and he's got it looks like he's the victim of a college prank where they shave part of your head.
Right.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah,
that guy is quite awful. And the acting is terrible. I mean, it's hard to tell through dubbing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that the acting is terrible. I mean, I think it's fine. I don't know that the actors have
It's hard to tell, but I'm pretty confident in saying that these people probably are not at the top of their profession.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure none of them went on to, star in Academy Award winning films, but
although this one didn't win an Academy Award for I don't know, well, it's a foreign film, I guess maybe it wouldn't necessarily qualify for best makeup or something.
Yeah.
He got robbed.
Yeah, man. I like the worms, the live worms that he uses a lot in the zombies.
That's the maggots.
Cool. It's kind of cool looking, worms and maggots. Yeah, I don't know. The actors, I think, they fulfilled the role that they were required to fulfill.
Yeah, I know.
They didn't.
I know.
There was nothing for them to really.
It could go to other levels, but at the level it's at, it's fine. So
fair enough. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So we both really like
the actors in Night of the Living Dead aren't that great either, but I don't use that as a point to criticize it. I guess. Yeah. It basically doesn't matter.
Yeah. One thing I want to say too about why I like this movie is that it's just so straightforward and just interested in gore and zombies. Because
even the title is just.
It's just zombie, and the tagline here is "We are going to eat you."
That's a really good poster too.
But one thing I like about this movie and these kind of movies is that it's so unpretentious. Because sometimes I kind of get annoyed with like, I like George Romero, of course.
I know what you're gonna say.
But like some of the people who like are
they
really into
kind of
Romero,
retroactively apply an idea.
yeah, or they'll say like, oh well, I don't like it because it's zombies. I like it because it's a commentary on race relations in America. I'm like, bullshit. There's like hundreds of movies about race relations in America that aren't.
Yeah, why don't you
horror
like
films about zombies?
But
Why aren't you fans of those? Like,
Why
just
don't you
admit
watch-
it. You like zombies. It's okay.
It's like,
And-
go watch Do the Right Thing.
Exactly. I don't hear
But
them going
no.
off about that movie, but that apparently that is what they like about Night of the Living Dead. Now, I'm not saying that's not there in Night of the Living Dead, and I'm not saying that doesn't make that movie interesting, but I'm saying at some point you have to admit, like, you just like watching zombies and you like gore.
That commentary takes it
And-
from being like an 8 to a 9. You know, it barely adds anything. To
Right.
it.
And the people who can just admit that they like gore and they like zombies are the ones who embrace
Just admit it, people.
zombie.
Just admit
Just, you know, come clean and watch zombie.
it. Be much happier.
You'll be a lot happier. Well, so you'll be a lot happier if you watch Zombie, but I don't know about our other two films that we
Be
watched
less
tonight.
happy if you keep watching Fulci movies.
Right. So the next movie we watched, which was one that he made a couple of years later, and seems to kind of be regarded as one of his better films.
When did Zombie come out, though?
I think Zombie is 70. I want to say 79.
So like late 70s.
It's late 70s.
And then the next one, the Beyond, is going to be from the 80s.
Yeah, The
81, I
Beyond
think.
was 1981. So that's the next movie we watched.
Yeah.
1979 was Zombie. Do you want to try to summarize the plot of The Beyond? It also
I
features
guess.
zombies.
Mm-hmm. Which I didn't like that aspect of it,
No?
actually. So I guess apparently it's one in the series of, is it 3 movies that he
Yeah,
made?
it's-
Kind of a similar theme.
There's a thematic trilogy, like the Gates of Hell trilogy, kind of in the way that Dario Argento has the Three Mothers trilogy. 3 films that stand independently but are linked by, I think, just the element of the idea of these gateways to another dimension.
So I guess I'll just separate it from those and just kind of judge it on its own. It's about a hotel that this girl inherits from a grandparent or somebody who dies. I guess it doesn't matter who.
Yeah, I remember.
It's in New Orleans.
Yep, I like that New Orleans setting.
I like the idea of it, but you can't really tell it's New Orleans.
Oh, I thought you could.
I don't know. Some parts you can, and some parts it doesn't really make a difference. So this hotel, I guess, is on basically like the mouth of hell, or one of the 7 mouths of hell. It's like over an opening where you can access hell.
Like a hellmouth, like on Buffy.
A hell mouth, sure. It's like that, and I guess apparently when you discover that, if you keep digging underneath the hotel, then you release these, like, hell into the real world.
Yeah,
right?
this
Is
evil.
that what it was?
This evil.
Well,
Yeah.
you're giving me a quizzical look, and I'm not sure.
Well, because I wanted you to explain it to me, because this movie is somewhat nonsensical. It doesn't really hold together as a narrative that much.
I mean, what I got out of it is like
It's essentially a haunted house story
once you kind of that's what I thought
or
it
a
was going
haunted
to be.
hotel story.
Once you kind of crack the seal of this of hell, then it bleeds over into the real world, and you can't. It's kind of like a Nightmare on Elm Street dream state where you can't tell what's real
Yeah,
and what's
I think
not.
that's what was going on, which kind of I think maybe explains some of the non kind of narrative aspects of the plot, where it's like
It's kind of an excuse for a lot of the stuff that doesn't make sense. I think.
maybe, yeah, I don't know. I do think this one kind of deliberately had a kind of surreal, kind of dreamlike atmosphere a little bit. But essentially, yeah, that is the story. Years ago, prior to the main like timeline of this movie, a character who had lived in this hotel had uncovered the key to this hell dimension and unleashed this kind of evil force, which manifests in various ways.
One way being zombies,
And one way being zombies.
which kind of just hijacked the end of the movie.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, it maybe didn't need to. Fulci maybe didn't need to fall back on zombies.
Yeah, like you could have used zombies in a scene, maybe.
Yeah.
Or...
That's a valid criticism.
But also another thing about it that that doesn't work. You say like it's supposed to be kind of that way, kind of disjointed,
I think so.
non-linear, whatever you want
Yeah,
to call
I think
it.
so. It had that aspect to it.
The problem with that I had is now the characters aren't necessarily that interesting, But they have so many of them that they kind of lose track of a lot of them for extended amounts of time.
Mm-hmm.
There's the guy that looks like Peter Lorre who disappears through probably like a half hour or so. I can't remember, there's other characters who just completely disappear. And they pop up again as if like nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't tie together very well.
Yeah, it really the movie.
I guess it's not supposed to tie together, but you need something there. Like I've said with other movies we talked about, you need like at least a structure underneath it, holding it together.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought about this movie. Is that it was kind of a loosely connected series of scenes that kind of could have happened in any order. It didn't really have a momentum that built to an ending. The ending was just kind of a, WTF kind of moment. So I did think the individual scenes were interesting. I did think the movie had a good atmosphere that kind of took advantage of the New Orleans kind of setting. I think they filmed a lot of this in New Orleans. It certainly looked like it to me.
I think they did.
Yeah,
you're right. It looks like that, but
So yeah, I enjoyed it, but it didn't excite me. It didn't have that kind of visceral thrill that Zombie had. I think this was probably Fulci's attempt to kind of make a little bit more of a slightly artistic film. I mean, this is still kind of grindhouse horror territory, but he's trying to do something a little bit more interesting here.
Yeah.
But I think he does kind of sacrifice that kind of visceral impact that something like Zombie had, just by being such a basic story, but just doing that really well.
I like the main guy who can't hit the zombies in the head.
Oh God, yeah. That was irritating. Yeah, so there's this scene towards the end of The Beyond where they were in a hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were like in a morgue, and all of the bodies from the morgue.
This movie doesn't really know what it's doing because it says that one guy's the doctor, but he's also doing the autopsy. It's like the doctors don't do all those. They have specialists in the field.
Right. We could really pick these movies apart. But the thing that
I didn't really say anything about it when the movie.
But the thing that really irritated us in this scene was that all the bodies in the morgue become animated as zombies due to this evil force. Cool idea, and a kind of cool scene. But then the guy who's trying to protect the girl, he has a gun, and he continues to shoot the zombies in areas of their body other than their heads.
After he discovers.
Even though he knows, because he gets a few of them, that shooting them in the head drops them instantly. Immediately. Shooting them anywhere else does not kill them. He just continues to shoot them in other places. And it's not because he's a bad shot, it's just because he's
just got
an
a little
idiot.
Pistol, too. He can't waste those bullets.
Yeah, so that scene was just infuriating as he continued to do chest shot, stomach shot, chest shot, stomach shot. I'm like, dude, clearly you've got to shoot these zombies in the head.
He even shot one guy like twice in the stomach, and I don't know, he was like what's that going to accomplish?
Yeah, I really wanted that.
See?
I really wanted that guy to get killed by a zombie in that scene. I really wanted that to happen.
Instead, he just ended up in hell.
Spoiler alert.
Whatever.
But I like The Beyond. I would say if you're interested in Lucio Fulci, definitely check out The Beyond in addition to Zombie, because I think it is a more kind of interesting idea, interesting story.
They kind of make good companion movies.
Yeah, they do. And I thought he did a pretty good job with it overall. It was a little frustrating at parts, but overall it was a pretty good movie. Can you explain to me the significance of the blind characters in that movie?
They're blind to the tyranny of the oppressed resistance.
But seriously, did you understand it? There was like this blind young woman.
Well, first off, I'm kind of confused as where that girl came from.
Me too.
And her dog Dickie.
Yeah.
Who goes nuts, Dickie.
Yeah,
goes crazy.
Her seeing eye dog.
I'm gonna spoil things.
Which attacks her, a la Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't understand who that blind girl was, or why the other girl, the daughter of the plumber who was killed, went blind, or why the two characters at the end went blind when they went to hell. I mean, clearly being blind has something to do with this hell dimension.
I kind of think maybe it's
Like,
something
maybe-
like, you know, when people,
when they go,
I don't even know if it's like an urban myth, if someone's like frightened, their hair turns white.
when they see hell.
When they actually see hell, that's kind of the effect that happens. Like the blind girl had been there
Yeah, well,
previously.
it did sound like, because she said something at some point like, "Don't make me go back there."
Yeah, so she
maybe
had escaped from hell.
was escaped from hell. Maybe she was originally maybe she was like a demon or something. Like,
Well,
there's a lot unexplained in this movie, but you know, I would.
Maybe she had a cat in her brain.
It's the kind of movie that you're kind of baffled by, but I would watch again and maybe see if I could like kind of pick up some other stuff on it, as opposed to like something that I'm just kind of baffled by and would not want to watch
It
again.
did seem a little longer than it was. Like it was just an hour and a half, but I think it felt a little.
Yeah, and I think that's
Kinda
because,
dragged on.
because of the kind of structure of it, of just kind of being a little bit more non-linear and having these kind of disconnected scenes. But I still would like to recommend it to folks.
So it's kind of a step down from Zombie, but not too drastic.
But if you want to take a drastic step down from Zombie, and I almost hate to end on this note because I feel like Fulci, you know, he did such great movies, he had such a great career.
But also, don't be afraid to kind of
Gotta be honest.
say what you feel.
Yeah.
Because honestly, what I was thinking, I had liked Fulci before. I'm not exactly confident in his filmmaking abilities. No, this was at the end of his career that he made this one.
Well, the thing about Fulci is there are limits to his abilities, and I think he exceeded those limits with the third movie we watched, Cat in the Brain. Now, we chose Cat in the Brain because it sounded like a really interesting premise. Lucio Fulci plays himself in this movie. He's stars in the movie as the director,
I
Lucio
thought it was
Fulci.
Maurice Sendak.
Right, he looks like Maurice Sendak. If people know what the children's author Maurice Sendak looks like, he looked just like him in this movie. But he plays himself as a director who's kind of slowly going mad by envisioning various scenes from his movies.
It's kind of a bad version of, what is it, New Nightmare? Or Wes Craven plays himself.
Oh
And he makes his
yeah,
own. So it's
that's a much more interesting movie than
That's
this.
why I said it's a bad version of that. That's a really good movie.
Honestly, what this is a clip show. And this is basically the whole
Oh,
thing.
you said it. Sometimes a clip show is just a clip show.
Yeah, that's really what this is. And the whole story with Fulci going insane, and he goes to see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is himself this psychotic killer, and he is killing people after the fashion of the murders in Lucio Fulci's movies with the intent to frame Fulci for
He's
those
kind of
murders.
setting him up, yeah.
Yeah, but all of this is just an elaborate framing device for a clip show.
That almost would be fine
Yep.
if that story wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Now, the doctor is killing people to kind of match what had happened in Fulci's movies.
Apparently.
That's what he says. He actually says that.
So we're going to take him at his word.
But before he says that, I remember I even said, I was like, so if he's committing them in the real world and Fulci's visioning them in, like, he knows that they're from movies that he made, aren't the police going to put two and two together eventually? And then you find out in the next scene, he's like, that's what the bad guy wants to happen. He wants the police to put it together and have it point to Fulci.
Yeah.
But I've never even, like, studied any screenwriting or anything like that before. But I shouldn't have been able to figure that out right before they say it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not the most sophisticated.
That's such
story.
a colossal mistake to make. Mm-hmm. And there's one other really bad, that is a spoiler at the end, a really bad mistake that they make is where they say, they show that the bad guy, or they don't show that the bad guy has died.
Yeah.
They tell you that the bad guy had been killed.
Yeah.
So you even lose out on that part of it.
Yeah.
It couldn't do anything.
It
right.
really resolves itself in an anticlimax.
Very
which
much
really
so.
just kind of further betrays the fact that this was just kind of an excuse to like recycle a lot of this footage from previous movies directed and produced by Lucio Fulci.
It did kind of make me want to see some of those movies they were showing.
It made me want to see some of them, and it made me want to avoid others. I mean, yeah, I mean, some of the individual clips were fine and looked, potentially interesting. The one that
Like,
with the
with-
wheelchairs looked kind of. I kind of wonder what
Yeah.
that was all about.
the Nazi sadism
Yeah, the Nazi
Orgy.
the Nazi orgy. We probably skipped that one.
seems. No, I don't know. I was gonna say that.
Oh,
Kind
you want to see that one?
those marry those two ideas together. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's possible.
But so yeah, so I mean, maybe like if you're
Pool
like,
ball in the pocket.
ooh, yeah, there's a disturbing pool ball scene in this one, but
Yeah.
we won't describe
More-
that any further.
Oh, and also this one, they say, I was reading some review, I think it even says it on the sleeve or whatever, that this one's known for having like one of the highest body counts. But that's
Lame.
totally misleading because you're
Yeah.
using body. I could put
That's
together
like
a
I could
clip
say
show.
it's like the compilation, that YouTube compilation that puts together all the Friday the 13th kills.
Yeah,
I could
it's
say
like-
that has like a highest body count. It's like,
Yeah.
even though that YouTube clip is awesome,
Yeah.
it's a cheat. You know, it's not. This does not actually have the highest body count. It's a clip show. So I mean, maybe if you're like a hardcore Fulci fan and like have seen all these other movies, you might get a kick out of like the way they are put into this movie, or maybe you'd just be bored by seeing them again. I don't know, but I don't think. I mean, I don't think
I think
anybody.
you'd be annoyed that there's too much of an attempt at a story.
Yeah, I don't think
They shouldn't
anybody
even try that.
could make the case for Cat in the Brain as a
The opening
great
scene,
film.
there is actually a puppet, a cat, eating a brain.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, yeah,
very
and this
in your
is,
face.
Yeah, and this is what I mean by like Fulci, like kind
spells
of
it
like,
out for you.
Yeah, like I mean, and this is why Zombie was my favorite of the three, because like it had a low bar in terms of like artistic ambition, but it was awesome for what it was. It was just like a gory zombie movie. A little bit with the Beyond, and I think especially with some of the kind of meta commentary going on with Cat in the Brain, Fulci is kind of trying to make some kind of a statement about his career, about something, and he's not an intellectual. He doesn't really have anything
You
to
use
say.
meta commentary and cat in the brain in the same sentence.
And they don't belong in the same sentence.
No.
Yeah. No. Well, and there's
the
that
big
one.
problem that I had
There's
was
that
this-
one horrible line where the psychiatrist who is trying to frame Fulci, he says something like, "Oh, and of course the police will, be duped by this."
No, he's like, because these movies cause people to commit murders. We all know that.
Right.
That's what they say anyway.
Yeah, he says like that's what that stupid theory says. It's like,
He not only explains the
come
plot
on.
in like a Dr. Evil Austin Powers way, he explains his motivation.
Yeah.
He goes way
and
too
the
far.
ostensible kind of theme that Fulci's
Yes.
and Lucio Fulci, the character in this movie, is like not an interesting character
He's
at
kind of
all.
pathetic.
He doesn't go through any kind of like a progression with this kind of like madness he's going through. We don't know how he really feels about making these movies. It really is just he keeps having visions, and he always has the same kind of like disturbed, worried expression on his face the whole movie. So I mean, maybe I went in with unrealistic expectations.
I mean,
but
this is where I started to get worried about it early on watching it. Is, well, number one, the title. But
Cat. Well, see, I was Cat in the Brain. I was intrigued by the title.
But what he does is when he's showing clips from his other movies, which I haven't seen the majority of all those ones.
Right.
I don't think I saw any of the ones from the clip that he shows. But they'll show a clip from the movie, and then they want to show that he's being disturbed by what's going on.
Right.
So there's a scene where there's a guy who's a cannibal. He's eating a dead body, parts of a dead body. He's grilling it up. And then Fulci goes to a restaurant minutes later, I guess a few minutes later after you watch him drive out of the parking lot really slowly like an old man. You see like documentary highway footage of him pulling out of a parking lot. It's boring.
He really lingered on that
And
parking lot.
but he goes to that restaurant and they offer him a steak, and then he's like staring at it like like it's something's disturbing him in some way. And then they show the scene that you saw 2 minutes ago of the bad guy eating the dead body. It's like you don't need to spell it out every single thing.
It was just. I feel like we are going after an ant with a sledgehammer here.
I think it needs to be said because he's held in such high regard, and I still hold him there. But I do think that you shouldn't be disappointed. Like his career, honestly, did kind of fall off.
Oh yeah, for sure. And this was made only,
and that's been documented.
like maybe 6 years before he died, and he definitely kind of peaked at a point.
I mean,
in his
I
career.
respect him as a
For sure. Yeah,
director.
absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I kind of feel bad reviewing Cat in the Brain last. You wish he maybe could have made some kind of a great kind of final statement.
It kind of felt like that's another thing is that you kind of feel like all directors are. It's on some level egotistical, I suppose.
Oh yeah,
right?
sure.
This one was way too much of that.
Mm-hmm. And it just kind of came off as kind of sad because the film didn't really hold together, and
he's showing like naked women, him looking at naked women, and he's just like in his 60s, and you're just uncomfortable. And
yeah,
he's throwing in all these elements that he knows are what he's famous for, but they're not saying anything.
right.
He's not making any kind of comment, or even at that rate, the clips they show aren't even that not interesting at all. Really.
Well, yeah, and they
some clips go on forever, and you lose like weren't they trying to tell a little bit of a story?
And you kind of get desensitized even to the gore and the violence, which usually is the most
and that is drawing more out of it than he did.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, ironically, I think in kind of drawing together all of these images from his films to kind of make a statement about how he'd spent his life,
it kind of speaks
as
on
an
its
artist. It kind of made it look as though this is what you've done with your life as an artist, But the truth is, Fulci didn't need to make a movie like that to sum up his legacy because he made
his mark.
He made Zombie, and he made a lot of other great films, and I think The Beyond was an interesting film. So it's a recognition of his limits as a filmmaker that he wasn't able to pull off, a kind of meta commentary in Cat in the Bag. But Cat in the Brain. I keep calling it Cat in the Bag.
It's because of funny people.
Funny games.
Funny games. Funny. Okay.
All right, we were wrap this up. But
those
yeah,
movies threw me for a loop.
So skip Cat in the Brain. But definitely check out Zombie and
Funny People.
The Beyond, and check out Funny People, which is by a different director. But so Zombie, great movie. The Beyond, I thought, good movie.
I think Zombie and The Beyond go together really well.
Yeah,
I think they make
great
a
double feature. Just skip Cat in the Brain and you'll have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Lucio Fulci, really terrific, influential filmmaker. Quentin Tarantino has cited.
Oh, that's
him
another
as
thing.
a
Is
big
the
influence.
beginning of watch the beginning of The Beyond, that opening scene where it's kind of in whatever that would be like, not sepia, but it's like.
Oh yeah, it
brown
was
color.
like sepia toned.
That looks like a Tarantino.
Yeah,
it
looked cool.
None of the rest of the movie does really,
Mm-hmm.
but that scene in particular, even like the fonts they use and the credits, I felt really good about him at that point, and it didn't quite continue that path. But I think that is kind of an interesting section of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I totally forgot about that.
I really like that. I kind of thought for a minute, I was like, oh, is the whole movie going to look like this in black and white or this kind of sepia tone?
I knew it would because I had seen clips from before, but yeah, it's a really good. It's a good sequence where they chase down a warlock. I think it's in the 20s. It takes place. It's kind of a prologue, or it is a prologue, where they chase him down, and that whole sequence, it just looks really cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't match with the rest of the movie,
yeah.
unfortunately, but
I would love to see a couple of Fulci movies in a double feature, like in an actual drive-in.
I'd kind of like to compile my own clip show of his films, and I think would be really interesting. But he didn't.
He didn't
particularly pick. Probably he picked like maybe his favorite movies, maybe his stuff,
or maybe the ones he currently had the rights to,
or maybe the only ones he could remember, or maybe the ones that he had the rights to. That's true. I mean, it could have been that, but I feel like if. People who know films a little better are able to pick out, like Tarantino obviously is a good example of that. You'd be able to pick out little things like that that you can use to make your own movies, I suppose, or I don't know, that you can just recognize talent. You can be like a talent scout, and you can pick out good things about it. Like I said, like Fulci, I don't have confidence in him as a writer at all, but I think he's a pretty brilliant cinematographer. I think even though I don't know if someone else did the cinematography on his movies, whatever, but he has a really
His movies have a cool look.
he has a good visual sense, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah. So, because I don't want to, basically, I don't want to end by like bashing him.
Nope, I think we should definitely end on a positive note because we really enjoyed, 2 out of these 3 movies, and definitely are overall fans of Lucio Fulci. So, there you go. Okay, I guess that's all that there is to say about Il Maestro, and that will wrap up yet another episode of Brain Says Strange Things. But we'll be back soon with another episode to talk about horror movies.
This is episode 6, isn't it?
This is episode 6, so hopefully episode 7 will be coming pretty soon. We have a little bit of a gap between this and the previous episode, so hopefully before too long you'll see another episode, so check back. And thanks as always for watching.
Arrivederci.
Bye.